Hey there, Twins fans, and welcome to a very special edition of Twins Daily live stream. Not off-season live, it's in-season live, but it's like a hot stove in the middle of the season right now. We're covering the trade deadline. It is currently 2:30 p.m. on Friday afternoon, so 30 minutes to go until the deadline. I'm trying to catch my breath. I've been standing in one place, but I'm still out of breath trying to keep up with everything that's been going on this deadline. We got a lot to talk about. I am joined here today by fellow Twins Daily writers, Seth Stowes and Matthew Taylor. How you doing, gentlemen?
This is crazy. I don't remember a trade deadline like this, but it's fun.
Yeah, and the Twins' major players. So the big deal, they've already made a big splash. We're going to talk about the Jose Barrios trade, which was announced earlier today with the Blue Jays. Still might be some big splashes or some small splashes to come here. We're going to try to cover it live over the next 30 minutes or so leading up to the deadline. Comments are open. If you're watching on Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, or whatever, we can see your comments come into the stream here. And we'd love it if you guys helped us keep up with the news. We're going to try to keep up with the feeds, the news feeds here as we're discussing these moves and stuff. But if you guys can help us stay on top of this, we'd love to kind of react to these moves as they happen. We do expect the Twins to make some more moves here before 3:00. So without further ado here, I'm just going to pull up this little slide stream here, and we're going to talk about, we're going to get started. There's been two moves today as I speak that the Twins have made. They have traded Jose Barrios to the Blue Jays, as I mentioned, and more recently sent left-handed starter Jay Happ to the St. Louis Cardinals. So we're going to talk about both those moves, but I think obviously, headline 1A here, Jose Barrios, longtime Twin, beloved player, a critical fixture for this team in a lot of ways. The Twins trade him to the Blue Jays, and I don't think anyone can deny that, at least from what we know so far of this trade, it is a very good haul for the Twins. Clearly, they were able to drive up a very strong market for Barrios and were able to score a couple of legitimate top prospects. Austin Martin, a middle infield, center field kind of guy. He was the number 5 overall pick in the draft last year, one of the top prospects in baseball. And then a right-handed pitcher by the name of Simeon Richardson. He's 20 years old, also a top 100 prospect, according to MLB Pipeline. Seth, what's just kind of your immediate reaction here? Obviously, you've known Barrios for a long time, since he was a freshly drafted prospect. You've seen him come along and turn into this outstanding, durable, 2-time All-Star. Tough to lose him, but hard to complain, at least from what we know right now about the return.
Yeah, I mean, the reality is they weren't going to be able to sign him. He wants to become a free agent, and understandably so. At that point, they just had to kind of let it be known. And frankly, once Max Scherzer was dealt, he became the top player on the market, and the Twins definitely had their choice. I'm guessing they had other good options as well, but I don't think anyone's surprised that the Twins acquired their second Olympian in Simeon's Woods Richardson, who, like Joe Ryan, is in Tokyo right now. But I was really surprised to see Austin Martin included. I was expecting, I think it's Jordan Groshans or something, another shortstop. But, I mean, if you get Austin Martin, who obviously his career at Vanderbilt, number 5 overall pick just 1 year ago, he's already in Double-A, maybe a shortstop, probably second base, center field, great athlete, great hitter. Boy, I think they did well.
Yeah, it sure looks good. I mean, I think that everyone was surprised to get a prospect of this caliber. But, I mean, the word was pretty strong. The buzz was going strong that the Twins were really getting some strong offers. And it was not a surprise at all when the news came that he was traded. It was basically expected by that point based on the momentum that was happening and the reports that were coming. Matthew, what's kind of your original, initial thoughts on this trade, and what do you feel about Austin Martin as a centerpiece?
Yeah, same as Seth. I think got to be thrilled with what the Twins got back, just with all the potential offers and packages that were being rumored. I was most interested in the Blue Jays. I thought the top of their farm system is the most impactful and interesting of all the teams that were interested in Barrios, and not knowing necessarily how aggressive the Blue Jays were going to be. They're third or fourth right now in the AL East. I think they're third, but they're like 4 games back of a wild card spot. So wasn't sure how aggressive they were going to get. And I wrote back in early June about the Blue Jays as a potential suitor for Jose Barrios. And as I was laying out packages for Barrios from the Blue Jays, I had Simeon Woods Richardson as the headliner in a trade for Barrios. So, and I think back then that was, even a pretty aggressive trade offer. So just to see how much value has Barrios gained on the trade market from then until now, with so many other teams making moves, putting pressure on the other contenders to not only get Simeon Woods Richardson, but to get Austin Martin, a top 20 prospect in all of baseball, is just a slam dunk. I think you hate to lose Barrios, and we can get into that, and I'm sure we will. It stinks to lose, your homegrown star, number 2, number 1 pitcher, but if you're losing him, it's hard to argue with the package the Twins got, and it seems to be the national consensus. It's not a rose-colored glasses Twins homer type thing, but national writers from across baseball seem to think the Twins just did an awesome job.
Yeah, and same thing as with the Nelson Cruz trade, which I think we can talk about a little bit shortly. That obviously happened a week ago as the Twins acted very early to trade their star DH. But that was another trade where, there was just universal praise for the package the Twins got, much higher than I think anyone realistically expected. So, again, you got to develop these players and bring them along for it to matter. But just in terms of the prospect status of these guys, we're talking about let's talk a little bit here about Austin Martin. The number 5 overall draft pick a year ago. That's just incredible to get a guy like that. And he's been looking very good this year. He went, obviously didn't play last year in the minors. But this year goes straight to Double-A. Was drafted out of Vanderbilt as a college player, so pretty advanced, and has looked ready for the task. He's hitting 281 with a 424 on base percentage, which is, I think, the most intriguing thing. 383 slugging. I think the power is still a little ways to go. I don't think he's actually 24. I have the wrong age there. Do you know how old he is?
22.
22, yeah. So obviously still some growth in the power department. I think scouts expect that to happen, but you're looking at a guy that was the number 2 prospect in the Blue Jays system, according to MLB Pipeline, and the number 16 overall prospect in baseball. And I think the initial reaction from some people who are, maybe looking at this as the top centerpiece, and they're thinking, well, the Twins need pitching, especially when they're giving up Jose Barrios, who is their best pitcher and a critical fixture in trying to, rebound and win next year. But I do think what's interesting about Martin is that he is sort of I don't want to say a redundancy, but he fills some spots where the Twins are sort of covering themselves at very, very key positions. You look at center field, which is a position he plays. Byron Buxton, we don't know what his future is. He might be traded within the next 20 minutes. There is some buzz on that front. Otherwise, it does sound like he'll probably be traded in the offseason with the way things currently stand. So you potentially have another guy along with Royce Lewis who could potentially fill that spot in center field and be a star caliber player. I don't think most people think Martin is pretty similar to Lewis, I think, and that he's sort of multi-positional, but I don't think anyone really believes he's going to stick at short necessarily as a full-time major leaguer. Could play second. One thing I thought was interesting, Seth, he hasn't really played it much in the minors, but his last year at Vanderbilt, he primarily played third base. So you're looking at a guy here who could potentially be a Donaldson replacement down the line as well. How do you think he sort of fits into the system and sort of with the strategy that the Twins are building going forward, Seth?
They've talked about it in at least this last offseason, if not even further back. And you mentioned Royce Lewis, but they've talked very highly about position flexibility. And if Martin plays second, third, short, or center, they may have openings there. Like you said, Byron Buxton's name is definitely generating a lot of trade rumors right now. Josh Donaldson's name is still coming out even after Eduardo Escobar was traded to the Brewers. So they could have a need, and they could have a need soon. But as I look at this in a big picture, the Twins had Trevor Larnach, Alex Kirilloff, Ryan Jeffers, Ben Rortvedt, Bailey Ober, Nick Gordon. All these guys are losing their prospect status. So, when the midseason rankings came out, they had Royce Lewis and Jordan Balazovic on it. And now they've added 2 more players. If they make another deal, actually 3 more players, because Joe Ryan's kind of right on there. And you look at these guys kind of lumping with the Kirilloff-Larnach group. You've got positions covered. You've got options. You've got even a lot of pitching depth, and now they're adding guys like Wood Richardson, Joe Ryan, Drew Strotman. If they deal more players, you have to assume more pitching is coming to go along with Balazovic, Duran, everything. I think it's exciting, and Martin just fits into that well, like Lewis, like Luis Ariz is playing different positions. It's going to be interesting to see, but it's good to have those guys that have that flexibility.
Yeah, an interesting note with regard to Royce Lewis, who, as we mentioned, in terms of positional flexibility, pretty similar profile. We mentioned that Austin Martin, number 16 on the MLB Pipeline overall top prospects list, that is 3 spots behind Royce Lewis, who is number 13. So if you're wondering sort of how he fits into the existing prospects in this system, basically neck and neck with the Twins' number 1 prospect. I don't know how much more you can realistically ask for in return for a guy in Jose Barrios, who is looking ahead to a big payday, hasn't been able to show that true ace form. A great pitcher, a very durable, good pitcher. But, I think you got to look at this as a pretty strong haul. Matthew, I want to address a comment here in the comments from Mark Roger Olson, who says, with payroll flexibility, any chance Barrios signs with the Twins in 2023? Of course, he is a free agent after next year currently. I personally think, if you're giving up a package like this, you've got to be intent on re-signing Jose Barrios, right?
Yeah, you'd think so. I still just don't get any sense that he's too interested in staying, and I think ultimately it'll be the big payday, and I just have a hard time believing that the Twins are going to outbid every other team in baseball. I think you can see just by the packages that Jose Barrios was getting in trade offers that he's a very sought-after arm. He's young. He still, teams think, has potential to go up, so I think it's going to be as you saw, it was aggressive on the trade market. It's sure to be extremely aggressive on the free agent market as well. I guess it'll just depend on how high the Twins want to go. I would also assume that the Blue Jays will be interested if they gave up all of this to trade for Barrios, that they will probably be intent to try to keep him and hang on to him. And if the Blue Jays have success in the playoffs with a pretty strong roster in Barrios, I could see that just being a long-term fit with the two of them. But certainly the Twins are going to try to, come back and get Barrios later. But
yeah, and I think this is an indication of what this front office was brought in to do. I'm sure they would have liked to retain Jose Barrios. They have taken a shot in the deep end of free agency with a guy like Zach Wheeler, but these guys were not brought in to spend $150 million on pitching. They were brought in to develop cheap young pitching, and they've brought in a couple guys in the Nelson Cruz trade who added that mix. They've got some great arms at AA and AAA. And now they've added another very interesting arm here in Simeon Woods Richardson. So let's talk a little bit about him. Second round pick in 2018, 3 years ago. So the Twins getting a first and second round draft pick from the last 3 years in exchange for Barrios, who himself was once a back of the first round pick exactly 10 years ago. Woods Richardson, a little younger. He's 20 years old. He was ranked as the number 6 prospect in Toronto's system by MLB Pipeline. And the number 68 prospect in baseball, which is, I believe, higher than MLB Pipeline had any Twins prospect ranked. Seth, you can fact check me on that regarding Balazovic and such, but I don't think they had anyone that high. So potentially the Twins just got their best pitching prospect by that measure, in addition to Austin Martin. You can see the AA numbers there. They're not very strong. He's in his first year at AA, 5.76 ERA, 1.50 whip. Averaging over 5 walks per 9 innings. But you also see that strikeout rate, 13.3 Ks per 9. The Twins bringing in some serious strikeout pitching prospects here. Matthew, any kind of initial thoughts on Simeon Woods Richardson based on your initial sort of research and just kind of vibe that you're getting as you look at him as a secondary piece in this deal?
Yeah, I think a lot of people are probably going to be a little bit worried about the high ERA numbers, which he's 20 years old and he's pitching in AA. So I don't give a whole lot of credence to those numbers right now. I think the number that I look at is that 13.3 K per 9. He just has some nasty stuff. He can get his fastball up into the mid to upper 90s. And who knows, with Wes Johnson, maybe we could get that up even higher. And I think he's just a big dude. He's 6'3", I think. He's just a big guy. He throws, good stuff. And he's 20 years old. I think we're just getting to the tip of what we're going to be able to get from this guy. He was the headliner, you'll remember, in the Marcus Stroman trade in 2019. So this is the second time that Woods Richardson has been traded, but it's just, I think it was the perfect trade because the Twins weren't, and what I was worried about is the Twins were going to be so set on getting pitching that they might have not taken the top offer that could have been on the table because they were trying to get, a Shane Baz or the top pitcher available, where it seems like the Twins just really took the best offer on the table. And they got, like you said, a redundant hitter in Austin Martin, but they also got a top pitcher in Simeon Woods Richardson, and they just got the best value out there. And I think I'm really excited about both of them.
Right. It's like the MLB draft, right? You can't draft for need or you're going to shortchange yourself. You got to take the best player available. And that seems like it's what they did. I think that's a great point that if the Twins would have been sort of narrowly focused on getting pitching, I don't think they get a prospect this good as Austin Martin, but to get a secondary piece that's as good of a pitcher as Simeon, I mean, that's just such a win, I think. Seth, do you have any sort of impressions? As Matthew mentioned, he's a guy that's been traded before. He's sort of a recognized name. What are your thoughts on Woods Richardson as an addition to this system?
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned that he's ranked 68 in MLB Pipeline's rankings. I looked, and Baseball America doesn't have him in their top 100 for their midseason rankings. So, yeah, it's going to depend on who ranks where. But in terms of stuff, it's electric. So, again, 20 years old, already in Double-A, again, representing the U.S. and in Tokyo right now. Obviously, he's well thought of. But I would also add, you mentioned, I think you could lump Martin and Royce Lewis kind of together as probably the top two prospects in the organization. And I think you can lump Balazovic and Woods Richardson as probably 3 and 4 at this point, with Duran and maybe Jose Miranda, Josh Winder, all kind of in that next group. But again, when you can acquire that kind of talent, you just do it. And, there were reports that they wanted a player with less pre-arbitration years so that they could hold on for a while. But they got 2 top 100 prospects, pretty much consensus. And I think that's pretty exciting.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there's any other way around it. For those of you who might have just joined us, this is Twins Daily's live coverage of the trade deadline. We are about 13 minutes away from 3 p.m. in the deadline right now. If you're watching from any platform with commenting capabilities, we welcome your comments. We'd love to have you guys chime in with what you think about the Jose Barrios trade, what you feel about losing Barrios, how you feel about these prospects the Twins got. And, we're keeping an eye on the feeds here, trying to stay up on the news and report it as it happens, but we're also talking to each other here. So if any of you guys catch anything, we appreciate you letting us know so we can cover it here on the spot. Still expecting some more movement here from the Twins here as things wind down. There are rumors involving Byron Buxton, Kenta Maeda, Michael Pineda. We'll see if there's any movement with Taylor Rogers, who's on the IL currently. A lot of guys who could be moved. Josh Donaldson, of course, is another name. I see Healthy Oiled Stone says Miranda needs to be up now. Jose Miranda crushing at third base in the minor leagues. So certainly a case to be made there that if you get Donaldson and his salary out of the way, there's an open path. I see Mark Oppegard says any other Twins rumored to go. Quite a few. I think Dan Hayes of The Athletics set the over-under at 5.5 Twins to get traded today. So far, only 2. So we're a little short of that. But yes, welcoming all of your comments. Let's talk, before we move on to this Hap trade and cover anything else as it comes up, let's just talk a little bit about what it means to lose Jose Barrios. We talked about what the Twins have gotten back here, and it's undeniably a very attractive, exciting package of prospects. But Jose Barrios, losing him hurts in a multitude of ways. First of all, he is a great person. I think someone that all of us find really easy to root for, a hard worker, sort of a self-made player who is really, the work has shown through in the player that he's become. Also, when you're looking at the scope of next year, this is undeniably a huge, huge hit to the Twins' theoretical, opportunity to contend next year. They just took the best starting pitcher out of their rotation for 2022. So we're going to have to see if they really are trying to continue the narrative that they're seriously considering themselves contenders next year, because it's a much harder case to make, frankly. And also, just on another level, Jose Barrios is the best story of a drafted and developed Twins pitcher in the last 10 years. And maybe the only story. Can you think of another success story that the Twins have had in the last 10 years, Seth?
No, and I think, Kyle Gibson probably should fit into that category, and he was traded today and became an all-star, but he never kind of reached that potential after his Tommy John surgery with the Twins. But I think before that, the guys that even contributed to the Twins that they drafted were guys like Jeff Manship and Brian Dunsing, and I mean, obviously we can, Dunsing had a nice role in the bullpen, but yeah, they have had a hard time previously. I do think they have the tools now available, the technology, the analytics that have helped guys that are drafted later, like Bailey Ober, an 11th round pick, Griffin Jacks, a 3rd round pick, Charlie Barnes, a 4th round pick. Josh Winder has become he's got to be close to a top 100 guy. He was a 7th round pick. Cole Sands was a 5th round pick. It's going to be interesting to see how those guys develop along with the Matt Cantorinos and things like that. So I think the tools are in place. Now they've added a few more arms, as we've talked about through the trade deadline so far. As for Barrios, again, it is mixed emotions because, we kind of got to know him. He wasn't afraid to be on social media and talk to people and get to know him. I mean, when I talked to him in spring training or in the clubhouse, we talked about kids and his kids and my kid, and he would ask that. And, there's all that personal side. But again, I think he's going to do well in Toronto. It's a good opportunity for him. And I know you made the comment about, the Twins aren't going to pay a ton for pitching, but at the same time, if they were a halfway decent team and were meeting the expectations that I think everyone had for them coming into the year, they would have had no problem paying him, this year and next year and take your chances in the playoffs. Unfortunately, the Twins are in a different place right now, and this is the obvious move, unfortunately.
Yeah. Yeah, I think when you can get a package like this and you're not going to be able to re-sign him, which people can say what they want about that being stingy poll ads or whatever you want, but Jose Barrios is determined to get a huge, huge payday, and that's just hard to justify for one of your 5 starting pitchers. I personally think it's a little easier to justify for, say, a MVP caliber starting center fielder, but that is neither here nor there at the moment. David Mensing mentions Taylor Rogers would be a drafted and developed success. That's a very valid point.
Absolutely.
Rogers was drafted the same year as Barrios, as was Tyler Duffy, who I think you could put in that group as well. But if we're talking about starting pitchers, that was kind of more what I was referencing because, you can have a guy like Duffy or Rogers who doesn't make it as a starter, but that's really been the thing about Barrios is he just hung in there as a starter, has started every 5th day. I don't think he's ever been on the IL or DL. Incredibly durable player who has basically always been effective. He's maybe never taken the next step that some of us hoped, but a very good pitcher, very fun to watch with one of the better curveballs in the league, I think. Matthew, as you look at what this does to sort of the Twins from a big picture standpoint, do you think they can realistically say, after trading Barrios for 2 prospects that they are going to be a contender in 2022, or is that out the door right now?
I think it's out the door. I think Twins have 2nd, 3rd worst pitching in baseball right now, and then just lost their worst pitcher. I think Kenta Maeda is going to be 34 years old next year, and there's just not going to be the arms to. I just think there's no chance. I didn't think the Twins were going to compete even if they held on to Barrios, which is why I really wanted them to trade him. And so now losing your best starting pitcher, unless the Twins are going to invest a whole bunch of money in free agency this offseason, but I just don't see that happening. So I think it's going to be a tough year. I think Twins baseball has been really exciting these last, week and a half as we're discussing trades and thinking about the future. And I think after the trade deadline, it's going to set in of, it kind of stinks to root for a bad baseball team because things are going to get pretty rough here for next year and a half or so. But it looks like Bryant might have gotten traded to San Francisco.
Yep, got some comments coming in. Just saw Jeff Passan tweet that Chris Bryant is headed to the San Francisco Giants. Giants have been pretty quiet up until this point, now making a big splash here with about 6 minutes to go until the deadline. We're certainly expecting some more Twins moves to trickle in here in the final minutes, but they are pushing it to the finish line here. So stick with us and we'll see what happens. Yes.
Yeah, one quick point I want to make to those listening, and I fall guilty of this every year at the deadline. The deadline is about 5 or 6 minutes from right now. But remember, every year it's 30, 40 minutes after that deadline that we start hearing of various moves trickling in. So we're going to stick around until those kind of die down here. The other thing I was going to point out is I'm sure you guys saw that, former Twins prospect, relief pitcher prospect JT Chagua was traded from Seattle to the Rays. A couple days before that, the Rays claimed Jake Reed, who debuted this year with the Dodgers. Last year, they had John Curtis and Aaron Slegers. I just kind of think the Rays have a thing for former Twins relief pitching prospects. And I say that because John Curtis, who was also on that World Series team last year with the Rays and had a win, was just traded to the Brewers from the Marlins. So, it is kind of fun to see the various trades as they happen. And, Gibson and other Escobar, all these trades of guys we've kind of grown to care about in recent years just keep getting traded.
Yeah. I see Healthy Oiled Stone says they think Maeda is going to stay, but they spelled it Medea, which I just kind of am chuckling at because I'm imagining the Tyler Perry character on the Twins pitching mound. Also says Twins could sign Pineda for a few years now. I think they hold him. The Twins could re-sign Pineda if they trade him. I mean, that's kind of the bottom line to me, and that's why I'm surprised. I'd be very surprised if we don't see him moved here within the next 5 minutes because if you can trade J Happ, how can you not trade Michael Pineda, who I think can actually legitimately help another team as opposed to just eating innings, which I have to imagine is the play here for the Cardinals. Let's talk a little bit about the other trade that the Twins made today, sending J Happ, the left-handed starting pitcher with a 6+ ERA, to the Cardinals for a pitching prospect by the name of Evan Sisk. And I think sort of the headliner of that deal, if you will, is John Gant, a little more of a veteran middle reliever, sort of an interesting arm, not very good numbers this year. I think he has as many walks as strikeouts, doesn't throw very hard. But I think, the Twins are eating a little salary here is my understanding, but to be able to unload any of that remaining contract and get anything back, Matthew, I think has to be viewed as a surprising win for the Twins.
Yeah, I did not see that happening, and no pun intended there, but was certainly pleased to see the Twins get any sort of value, and I'm not certainly expecting Gant to be a major player in future Twins teams, but I think what we've seen this year is just you need to have arms that are going to eat innings, and Gant might not, blow anybody away and might not put up, insane numbers or anything like that, but we're going to need an arm to eat innings this year and to get a guy who's cheap and who's at least 28 years old and has a little bit of upside. And then in addition, getting a double-A pitcher who knows, Sisk does have a double-digit strikeout per 9 ratio there. So who knows, could be a bullpen type guy there later on. But I think just the fact that you get any value for a guy like J Happ, who has been miserable since the month of April, is a miracle in and of itself.
Yeah, I mean, there's just been no positive signs from J Happ at all. I mean, I don't really see what the Cardinals could even see here from a 38-year-old who just looks to be at the end of his rope. His last start was absolutely brutal. How could you watch that start and think this is a guy you want in your rotation? I don't even understand. But, it seemed like the Twins were on the verge of maybe just DFAing him and eating the rest of the salary. So, like I said, that's pretty surprising. Seth, any thought? John Gant is a guy who's been around for a while, sort of a known name. Of course, that is John Gant, not Ron Gant, for any people remembering the 1991 World Series antics with Ken Herbeck. Any thoughts on John Gant and sort of what he can bring to this bullpen and pitching staff, Seth? He's a guy who, one thing that was interesting to me, his StatCast numbers are ugly this year, low blue percentile in a lot of different measures in terms of spin and velocity and expected opponent batting average. You go back 2 years before the pandemic year in 2019, and they were actually pretty good. So maybe there's something here that the Twins can build on.
There might be. Even if you look at his first 2 months this year, he made 10 starts at the beginning of the year, and in that he went 4-3 with a 1.60 ERA. So I mean, there's something there. He's definitely struggled over the most recent month or so, but there's definitely something there. He is going to turn 29 next week, so. I think we need to be realistic on what the expectation is here, or, what we should hope for. But at the same time, they'll need bullpen arms. they'll need back of the rotation arms. And if he fits into that mix for a starting spot next year or ends up in the bullpen, again, for J Happ, you're happy. And to get Evan Sisk, who, he walks too many at AA right now, but again, has a chance. It's another lottery ticket. And again, for J Happ, you got to be thrilled that you got anything.
Yeah. Couldn't agree more. It is currently 3 p.m., 3 o'clock. The trade deadline has officially lapsed. Do not take that to mean, as Seth mentioned earlier, that the Twins have not made any more moves. These things start to trickle through sometimes 15 to 30 minutes after the deadline passes. So we're gonna stick with you here for probably another 30 minutes at least and kind of try to keep an eye and see if anything else drops. I think of everyone was so mad 2 deadlines ago when it seemed like the Twins hadn't made any moves, and then I'm not going to say anyone ended up
shouldn't have made any moves.
But we did learn that Sam Dyson was acquired like 15 to 20 minutes after that deadline, I think. So just to make the point that the fact that we don't have any additional news right now is not a sign that there isn't any. So
Ken Rosenthal just tweeted, "No Buxton trade, staying with Twins." So
that to me is wonderful, wonderful news. I think even if, unless you got blown away by a trade, even if you don't think you're going to be able to re-sign him, you got to keep him around. I mean, what else are we going to have to watch next year? I mean, I love watching Byron Buxton play. I think he's going to, if he stays healthy the rest of this year, has a big first half next year, his value could be higher than it is right now. And I really, I wrote about this on Twins Daily earlier this week. I just think the Twins will be making a tremendous mistake if they don't re-sign Byron Buxton. Matthew, you happy to hear? I mean, I was a little intrigued because it sounded like the market was pretty pumped up, even though Buxton is currently on the injured list. What's sort of your feeling about the fact that it sounds like he's sticking around, at least for now?
Yeah, I agree with you. And I think trading away Jose Barrios and seeing if there's anything to do this offseason to maybe unload a Josh Donaldson, I'm not sure. But I just think maybe there's still – it seems like with Barrios, there just was no getting an extension done. And even though there was that report last week that, talks are done with Buxton, extensions not getting done, it just still seems like the door is a little bit open to, if the Twins budge a little bit, if Buxton budges a little bit, that there's still room there for an extension. So I think the Twins now bought themselves, the rest of the season and into the offseason to potentially work out an extension. And if it doesn't work out, then you trade him in the offseason. Who knows how much, when he's on the injured list now, potentially the return is going to be similar to what it would be in the offseason. And maybe Buxton has another huge second half where he proves it even more and he stays healthy. So I just think that one wasn't as pressing of a need as Barrios was. So I think happy to keep Buxton here. I think it at least gives the fans something to watch in the second half. It would have gotten pretty ugly there if you would have lost Barrios and Buxton. So there's something to watch the second half of the season in addition to the prospects. And yeah, happy to see Buxton stay.
I agree with you on that one. Seth, you in agreement on that? Were you sort of interested in the idea of landing a big haul right now for Buxton, or are you glad to see him staying here at least for the time being?
Both. I'm thrilled that he's staying, and as Matthew alluded to, the conversation's happening. At least, unlike Barrios, the two sides were talking. There was back and forth. There were negotiations. Even though the Twins said, "Hey, here's our final offer," Buxton said, we've said no before, and we'll keep talking. So to me, he's interested in staying and willing to negotiate. Keep him around unless you get absolutely overwhelmed. And if you get a package that was even bigger than the Barrios return, sure, consider it, take it, things like that. But I think you got a chance to re-sign him. And as Matthew also said, in the offseason, he may be worth just as much because there may be more teams that would be interested at that time. So you could almost get a battle to see who can get him at that point.
For sure. As I mentioned earlier, we are streaming live. This is Twins Daily's coverage of the trade deadline 2021. My name is Nick Nelson, joined by Seth Stowe and Matthew Taylor, and a couple hundred of you guys. So if y'all are watching and you have any thoughts on any of these deals or you see any news pop in, Please feel free to comment. We see the comments.
Just got a new one.
Feed here.
Do-Hyung Park, the Minnesota Twins did not trade Michael Pineda, which shocks me. I cannot believe, just with all the pitchers going, and especially you think of a team like the Padres, who they were going after every starting. They were interested in Jose Barrios. They were interested in Max Scherzer. They were interested in Kyle Gibson. Why wouldn't they go for Michael Pineda? So super interested, and not sure necessarily why you wouldn't trade him away to get a prospect. And I would assume there were deals on the table, but looks like he's going to be staying in Minnesota for the rest of the year.
Yeah, I don't know, to what extent other teams are maybe just really unconvinced about his health. He had a pretty good outing his last start, but he was not, we haven't seen him missing bats. We haven't seen the same velocity that we saw earlier in the year. So it's just, you wonder if anyone wants to take on $4 million in salary and give up any kind of prospect for a guy that they just don't know. I mean, Michael Pineda has not had a quality start since mid-May. I mean, how much do you think that factored in, Seth?
I think it was a factor. And if he would have come back and been throwing 93, 94 instead of 88 to 90, maybe more teams were interested. Again, they got something for J-Happ. So unless they were asking for just a crazy amount for Pineda, it's inexplicable to me that they didn't trade him. You understand not trading Kenta Maeda. He's got a great contract for 3 more years. But to not trade Pineda, they've got a great relationship with him. He signed two 2-year contracts. You could sign him again in the offseason, get something.
Sounds like Kenta Maeda staying with the Twins too. So I'm not sure if there's any names left. Josh Donaldson staying with the Twins unless they trade a reliever. It seems like they might be done.
Yeah, I see we got a comment here asking about, let's see here, any word on Robles, Simmons, or Colomé being shipped? Thus far, none. I have not heard anything definitive one way or another, but my opinion with all of those guys was that it was going to be extremely difficult to trade any of them, even if you got nothing back. I mean, why would anyone want to take $4 million of salary for Andrelton Simmons at this point when he's a sub-replacement level player, one of the worst hitters, probably the worst hitting regular in baseball. What are you going to bring him in as a defensive replacement for that kind of money and give up anything? No. It's unfortunate the Twins are going to be stuck with that salary the rest of the way, especially when they'd probably like to give those reps at shortstop to other players. Robles, been terrible. He's a 6+ ERA since the start of last year. I don't know how he's going to help any contending bullpen. There's not a lot of salary owed, but even like a little under $1 million, I don't know why anyone would want to give up anything and take on that salary. And Colomé, he's pitched a little better lately, but it's kind of the same thing. Is he going to be an impact player in any contending bullpen? I don't think so. So we'll see if any news, comes in regarding those guys. But I kind of think the Twins are sort of stuck with them, and we'll probably end up seeing at least Robles, maybe Colomé get DFA'd so they can give some other guys opportunities in that bullpen. Seth, how do you feel about the fact that, probably Twins are probably going to be unable to unload some of these guys? Is there any reason to really keep running out the string with guys like Robles and Colomé at this point? To be honest, I'm very surprised that none of them was dealt. And again, it's possible that that'll trickle in over the next 20 minutes. Again, with the ability to eat some of the contract, I don't think we were expecting or hoping for a B prospect for any of them. But, Colomé has been a 3.5 ERA guy for the last 2.5 months. Robles has struggled of late, but, he's also picked up some big saves, and he's throwing 98. And, I know his overall numbers haven't been great, and he was terrible last year. But to me, why wouldn't a team pick them up for basically nothing? I'd be surprised if the Twins just DFA them. I just think that with so many young pitchers that they're going to rely on this year and next year, to be able to keep some innings eaters out there will be an important thing, because you can't keep throwing out guys that didn't pitch at all last year and expect them to pitch 150 innings this year. So I don't know. And then with Simmons, I don't really care. They could DFA him. It's fine. I love watching him play defense, but I'm surprised, to be honest, that they didn't at least, and maybe they did, but I thought they would all go. Yeah. No other Twins news trickling in at this point, but some interesting news here coming out regarding other clubs. Andrew Thayer's mentioning in the comments, Seth will find this interesting, Lamont Wade Jr., now a Cub. The one that got away to the Giants is on the move again. And here's another just fascinating piece of news. The Cardinals apparently traded for John Lester, which I wrote the trade deadline write-up on the Nationals and mentioned that big problem in their rotation was that John Lester was basically their J Happ. He was a veteran lefty signing who was a total disaster, and now the Cardinals have, for some reason, acquired both of them today. Matthew, is there any logic that you can sense in what the Cardinals are doing?
I have no idea what the Cardinals are doing. I think trying to, I don't know, and their playoff odds, I think they have like a 2-point-something% chance at the playoffs anyways, so I just don't really know what is going on there. But going back to just the lack of trades for the Twins down the stretch, and I mean, you had Dan Hayes, you had Aaron Glenn. People thought that there were going to be 5+ names traded from the Twins, and only 2 of them ended up being traded. So I think it was a big surprise for everybody. And maybe this is just too simplistic, but do you think it could be a type of thing that just the Twins had so much time and energy in figuring out a Jose Barrios deal that they just ran up against the clock and didn't end up making moves at the end? Or that's one explanation I can think of, but I don't know.
That's all I can think of. I mean, I don't know how else to explain it, you know? And then, like you said, and maybe Nick's right, maybe within a week or two, they'll DFA guys and get guys like Yennier Cano and Giovanni Moran and Ian Hamilton up here to take those places. I mean, with Happ out, now you've got more opportunities for Griffin Jacks, who's starting tonight in place of Barrios. Charlie Barnes, in his most recent start for St. Paul, only went 1 inning because they were anticipating a deal, so he may be called up. Bailey Ober, who they're going to continue to take care of. But at some point, we'll see Balazovic. At some point, hopefully, we'll see Winder. And when Joe Ryan gets back from Tokyo, we'll probably see him. Stropman, we could. So, and yeah, I'm amazed that the Giants would trade Wade for 2 months of Chris Bryant, even though, I mean, and in addition to Joey Bart, like the top catching prospect in baseball. Makes no sense.
Eric comments came in late. Quick recap on the Jays trade, and will Woods Richardson's name make a complete circle around his number? I wonder, did they put both of his last names on his jersey? That sounds rough. I don't know how they're going to get that on there.
We'll have to look.
Be like a bigger challenge than Mankiewicz. Eric and anyone else who might have come in late, just want to let you guys know this episode. We talked at the outset for probably 20+ minutes about the Barrios trade. So this episode, as soon as it ends, you'll be able to find it on demand via the Twins Daily podcast in audio. The full episode will be on YouTube. You'll be able to find it on the site. So, lots of conversation about that. And, of course, there will be plenty of coverage of what this means for the Twins and sort of what these new players bring to the table on the site in the coming days. So we hope you guys will all come hang out. And Jeremy says Wade did not get traded. Incorrect report. So I didn't see that official report anywhere, so I was wondering sort of where that came from. Anyone hear anything on the maybe trade to New York with Max Kepler? I don't think that happened. I think we probably would have heard about that by now.
Once they acquired Joey Gallo, the odds of Kepler going to New York were definitely decreased, and then they added Anthony Rizzo too. So I can't imagine other teams were clamoring for him as much.
Oh, here we go. Hansel Robles goes to the Red Sox.
Robles to
Jeff
the
Passan.
Red Sox. All right. Well, Jeff Passan, I mean, that's one of the best, most reliable sources in the biz. So that's definitely a believable report. And wow, so the Twins were able to find a taker, for Hansel Robles. Sounds like they got back a right-handed pitcher by the name of Alex Scherff. I'll look into him a little bit, but just sort of here initially, first of all, Seth, are you surprised that the Twins found a contending team that wants Hansel Robles? I guess the Red Sox must think, like the Twins did, that he's fixable because right now he's broken.
Yeah, like I said earlier, he's struggled. He struggled the last couple of weeks, maybe the last month, but he was good there for about a 2-month stretch. Throws hard, has good movement, walks too many, gets some strikeouts. He'll fit into a bullpen. Like I said, I was almost getting upset there. This is me being upset, by the way. about the Twins not trading more of those impending free agents. So it is good to see that, even if they get, and I still haven't seen the name of who they got, but we'll have to look that player up and find out. But to get anything is a good thing.
They got a player by the name of Alex Scherff. He is a 23-year-old right-handed pitcher, former fifth-round draft pick in 2017 out of Colleyville Heritage High School in Colleyville, Texas. He's been pitching in the Red Sox system for about 3 seasons and having a good season this year. Between high A and double A, he has a 2.45 ERA in 23 relief appearances, 29 and a third innings. 46 strikeouts in 29 innings. Holy wow, that's a 14.1 K per 9 average. Only 1 home run allowed in 23 appearances. Good numbers. I mean, looks like maybe, a little bit iffy control. He's averaging 4 walks per 9, but just taking a quick glance at the numbers here, the Twins need to bring some relief pitchers into their pipeline because they're going to be very shorthanded going into next year. So I would think to add another name to that mix that seems a little intriguing in return for Robles. Looks like another win here at the deadline for the Twins. Matthew, do you agree?
Yeah, super interesting trade. I didn't expect that at all. So I think he'll, go in the mix of the rest of the AA relievers with Cano and those guys. And hopefully I wouldn't be surprised at all to see them get a shot up here in the bullpen, at the end of the season. Who knows if we could get Scherff up there, but yeah, I think a solid trade. I think that Falvey and Levine bet pretty big on Hansel Robles this year. We saw the Twins let go a few of their right-handed relievers, Sergio Romo, to name one. And they bet pretty big on Hansel Robles to be a mid to back end of the bullpen type guy, and he just didn't quite pan out. The control just wasn't there and couldn't quite get back to his stuff from 2019. So it didn't work out, but interested to see a solid, reliever prospect come back. That who knows what could happen there.
Seth, are you as surprised as I am to see any kind of potentially useful arm come back in a trade for Robles? I mean, I don't want to completely, downplay. There's been times this year where Robles has looked like a pretty interesting pitcher. He was doing solid through the first couple months. He's got the velocity and was, of course, a couple of years ago quite successful for the Angels. But still, I just think with the way he's pitched the last month and sort of his total body of work dating back to the start of 2020, I'm shocked that a contending team like the Red Sox, which is in the driver's seat in the AL East, would find him to be a player who will be a useful piece for them. What are your thoughts, and what do you think the Red Sox perspective is on this deal?
Well, I think it's depth for them. I mean, he's not going to pitch 8th and 9th innings for the Red Sox. He will pitch 6th and 7th innings and be a veteran who has been there, has done that, has been in big situations and can pitch in any role. So I think it's a good deal. But again, to get anything back, and this kid is interesting, if nothing else. Again, another bullpen option. And it is interesting, too. I think, you look at who the Twins made some of these trades with, and Boston, they're right in Fort Myers, and they play each other in minor league spring trainings all the time. Tampa, they play all the time in spring training. They don't play Toronto a ton, but, I mean, it is interesting because these guys know each other well. So they know little, the lesser known prospects and just say, hey, let's take a shot on this guy. So, again, if he ever makes the big leagues, great. If not, you took a shot on a guy that you're going to let go in a month anyway.
Yeah. As we wait and see if any other late breaking Twins news comes in here at this deadline, we're now about 18 minutes past the trade deadline. Wanted to talk quickly about some of the other moves around the league that are sort of maybe pertinent to Minnesota's situation. A fascinating deal, crosstown deal in Chicago between the White Sox and Cubs. The White Sox acquire closer Craig Kimbrell, who went from free agent disaster to sort of returning to his mantle as a top-end dominant closer. So they're bringing him in addition to already having Liam Hendricks at the back end of their bullpen. That is a well-established all-star. I mean, two of the best closers of the past, 15 years now at the end of their bullpen. But they gave up Nick Madrigal, who I viewed as a building block player in their team. I think that's a huge return to give up. Matthew, obviously you're familiar with Madrigal. I mean, he's been hurt this year, but kind of a player semi-similar, I guess, to Austin Martin, and that he's that top of the order, speedy, on base kind of guy. A tough loss for the White Sox. What is that? I personally, as a Twins fan, am feeling kind of good about the Twins or the Sox giving up a player like that for an old closer who might be kind of breaking down at some point.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And I think Madrigal is sort of a decent comparison to Luis Ariz. I think there's a lot of comparisons that get made there just by, crafty little, infielders, get on base, don't hit for much power, but just really great with the bat in the hands. And so I think of it as if the Twins traded away Luis Ariz for a reliever. I would be happy if I was a division rival. And so just not needing to face an annoying. I think a guy like Madrigal is just one who bugs you. He just gets in the batter's box and you just know he's going to put up a great at-bat every time. So to get a guy like that out of the division for Craig Kimbrell, who I was trying to see, I think he's done at the end of the season. It looks like he has a vesting option in 2022, but I'm not positive that that's going to go through. So he might be, just done in a free agent at the end of the year. So obviously fine with that, just knowing the Twins aren't going to be competing this year and the White Sox get rid of a couple future pieces.
It is the kind of all-in type of move that a lot of Twins fans hoped that the Twins would make when they were in the same position as the White Sox. So good on them for that. I mean, they're making their push here, and I think they're definitely taking this division because clearly Cleveland is putting up the white flag, I think, which brings me to my next point. The Atlanta Braves acquiring 2 outfielders from the AL Central today, one of those being Eddie Rosario, who has not been very good this year. Mostly just a salary dump. I thought it was kind of funny that the player going back to Cleveland in that trade was Pablo Sandoval, who I didn't even realize was still around, the Panda. And then more recently, we just learned that Jorge Soler of the Royals also heading to Atlanta. That's a much higher wattage move, one of the better power hitters in baseball. That shakes things up. I believe Soler is still under control for at least beyond this year. Seth, what's your kind of read on that as far as what that means for Kansas City? They were sort of a surprising team early on, but they really slid and, they still look like they're a ways away.
Yeah, well, let me first just touch on, I was hoping and excited and interested in watching former college teammates Nick Madrigal and Trevor Larnach duel in the AL Central for years to come. But yeah, that won't be the case. As for the other deals, I was surprised to see Rosario traded, but again, he was on a 1-year deal, and Soler has 50 home run potential. He was having a terrible year this year. The Royals didn't give up Whit Merrifield. They still have Salvador Perez. I still like their lineup, and I still like all of the pitching that they've added in the draft the last few years. Cleveland, I thought it was a little surprising when they traded Cesar Hernandez yesterday to the White Sox. I like Hernandez as a kind of one of those pesky hitters that we're talking about. And then for them to get Kimbrell too, I mean, man, the White Sox are not only going for the AL Central. Cleveland basically threw in the white flag yesterday and today, but they're taking aim at something much bigger with what they're developing too. So Cleveland's probably, obviously they without Bieber, without Savali, they've missed Plesac for a long time, and they're going to struggle. And I still believe that the Royals are on the right track. But, again, Jonathan Scope wasn't traded by Detroit. I thought Detroit might be more active. So you just never know when it comes down to the deadline.
Yeah, no, of course. All right, well, I think we've got all the news in for the deadline. It sounds pretty final at this point. So sort of running it back here, the Twins have traded Nelson Cruz. They traded a week ago. Today here on deadline day, heading out Jose Barrios, the big name, J Happ, and Hansel Robles. 4 players sent out, 2 very good players and 2 players that the Twins are probably more than happy to part with. And a lot of good prospect talent coming back. Joe Ryan, Austin Martin, Simeon Woods Richardson, the headliners, Drew Strotman also coming over in that Cruz trade, John Gant, Evan Sisk, Alex Scherff, with the exception of Austin Martin, all pitchers, and the majority of them either in the majors already or on the verge of being ready. So as we sort of take a look at the big picture here and what the Twins did at the deadline, Seth, what are you most excited about and what are you most surprised about?
I'm most excited about Austin Martin, Simeon Woods Richardson. Obviously, we knew whatever they would get for Barrios would be the exciting stuff. They got things going with the Nelson Cruz deal, which I think we all would agree was a great return for a guy with 2 months left. Joe Ryan's exciting. He's a borderline top 100 guy too. And Drew Stratman coming back from Tommy John is very exciting. So, I mean, there's 4 players from those 2 deals that have a chance to be impact players in the big leagues. And then with some of the other trades, it's just, I mean, you're getting rid of some contract. You're getting rid of guys that are going to be free agents at the end of the year. And you take flyers on relievers or whatever the case may be. I'm amazed and surprised they got something for Jay Happ, especially something that good. And not saying they're good, but it's, at least something. I'm very disappointed that they didn't get rid of, a couple more impending free agents. I'm shocked they didn't trade Pineda. But other things, it's going to be interesting to see now how it plays out in terms of will some guys get released? How will they get all of these pitchers an opportunity, and how does that factor into some tough 40-man roster decisions at the end of the year too? So that's a good thing to have tough decisions in your roster. But, I feel good about the day. I'm glad Buxton's still around. I wish they would have dealt a few more players that are free agents, but overall, not too much to complain about, I guess.
I think you hit it on the head. Anyone who's still here in the chat with us, please feel free to leave some comments with your sort of final thoughts on maybe what excites you most, maybe what's, what you're having the hardest time with, whether it's losing Barrios or Cruz or whoever, or just any thoughts, final thoughts on the Twins activity here at the trade deadline. We'd love to hear your thoughts here before we sort of sign off. Matthew, from your perspective, what excited you most? What surprised you most? Are your answers the same or anything different on your end?
Yeah, pretty similar to Seth. I think the trade for Jose Barrios, I think the Twins hit it out of the park. I was a little worried that the Twins might overplay their hand, that they seemed to be, letting all of the offers come in, and they were certainly, building the market up. And part of me was worried that they might wait too long and be left without a chair to sit on. But they, I think, pulled the trigger at the perfect moment, and I think made a really good deal, which is much easier said than done. I think you can have a guy with a lot of trade value. You can say you're going to trade him at his peak value, but it doesn't always work that way. And I think the Twins played it perfectly with Barrios and traded him literally at his peak of value and got the peak return back from it. I think you never know how these prospects work out. Martin and Simeon with Richardson could fade away and never turn into anything, but we just need to remember right now that they got a really great return, and that's what's important when you're making these trades. What surprised me is I think Pineda was the biggest surprise back, that we just didn't get anything back for him. And I think the other surprise is just it really does seem like the Twins are trying to tread that line of trading away Barrios, but also still competing for next year. I think the fact that they held on to Josh Donaldson, I was a bit bummed of, and I know Nick is not exactly thrilled that he stayed on the team. I think they had a unique opportunity with Donaldson being healthy and performing well, that they could have traded him with not having to eat too much of his salary. And so just the fact that they held on to Donaldson, they held on to Taylor Rogers, they held on to Kenta Maeda, Max Kepler, all of those guys, I think shows that this front office believes that they can compete next year and really wants to compete next year. So it's going to be really fascinating offseason, just how the Twins navigate that, how aggressive they are in free agency, if there's any trades, that they're going to make in the offseason, and just how they go into 2022 with, as Seth said, a lot of 40-man decisions to make, and just a philosophy in general of how hard are they going to push for next season, just with all of the things up in the air that we don't know about with how tough this season's gone so far. So certainly a lot of reasons. Go ahead.
You touched on a couple things there that I think that I'd love to sort of just discuss here on our way out. I see Jesse mentions, wish we could have ditched Donaldson and other expiring contracts, but overall I'm hyped. I would say I am a little surprised they didn't find a way to move Donaldson. I just thought the way things have played out to this point in the recent weeks set it up as a strong possibility, because Donaldson could not be doing more to show that he can help someone, help a contending team right now. He's playing very well. He's been incredibly durable. I mean, based on what we saw in the first year and the start of this year, the fact that he's playing basically every day. The fact that he has had a couple minor injuries to the legs that kind of made us all say, oh my God, here we go again. And he was able to bounce back very quickly without really any problems seemingly. And the fact that, look, the Twins are going to have a tough time for the rest of this year. It's going to be ugly with no Barrios, no Cruz. They're going to be, I'm sure, trying out a lot of pitching prospects. And like you mentioned, Matthew, I think they'll take a shot at contending next year. I think it's going to be very dependent on how these young pitchers come through. I think they're going to be very reliant on having some of those guys break through, but that's not necessarily a very reliable formula. So how's this going to go with Donaldson? He's the lone, one of the lone superstar holdovers here with Barrios and Cruz gone. So how is this dynamic going to work when he's playing for and also ran for the rest of this year? You might lose that opportunity to trade him in the offseason if another injury pops up or the performance starts to decline. So I don't know, Seth, do you have any concerns about sort of the dynamic of keeping Donaldson around on a losing team that just sold huge pieces? And now, of course, the Twins are saddled with that, at least for now, another $50 million or whatever they owe him for the next 2 years, ages 36 and 37. Got to imagine to some extent that's inhibiting their flexibility to step up on a Buxton extension.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, it has various layers, but I mean, the concern when they signed him was as much about his, and it's good or bad, depending on who you talk to, but his attitude, of just extremely competitive, even if it's mean or rude or all that kind of stuff. And we've seen cases of that, but you just wonder on a bad team where more and more mistakes may be made. Maybe it was better to keep some of those veterans around just so that, he could be kept calm. I was thinking maybe the only thing that would have made a Buxton trade is if someone would have been also willing to eat that contract or a big chunk of that contract and still get prospects. I mean, I had visions of grandeur where I was thinking maybe Buxton plus Donaldson and some cash to Atlanta for, Christian Pache and two of their pitching prospects or, young pitchers because they've got a good system, that type of a trade. The other side of it is I've been getting a ton of questions the last couple of months about Jose Miranda getting called up. And the reality is, as good of a prospect as he is and the way he's climbed this year, he does need to continue playing every day. And he can do that in St. Paul. He plays third base. Donaldson plays third base. If they would have traded Donaldson, maybe they call up Miranda. He also plays second base, but you've got Polanco, Gordon, and Arise there potentially. And first base, you've got to figure out what you've got in Sano the rest of the way. And DH, you've got Rooker and Sano. So, I mean, yeah, you could have made it work, but he needs to play every day. So, not being able to get rid of Donaldson impacts the roster in several ways.
Joel mentions he gives his take on the deadline. Listen, this was a good day for trades for Minnesota. Not for this year, but maybe the next two. I give it a solid 8 out of 10. I think that's a good review. Eric mentions Darren Wolfson, our friend Doogie, just tweeted that there was not one offer for Simmons, which does not surprise me in the least. I don't know why anyone would want him on their team. I don't, but we're stuck with them. Here's a good question from Eric. Over under 4 of the prospects received today or at the deadline overall are in the majors this year. I think you look at a guy like Joe Ryan, who's going to be coming back from the Olympics. I think he's a guy who could be up. John Gant, of course, will pitch in the majors. He's already in the big leagues. Matthew, do you think over 4? I think that might be a little high, but it's also possible because they're going to have some innings to fill.
Well, if it was over 4, that would mean one of Austin Martin or Simeon Wood Richardson appears for the Twins this year, which I just don't see happening. So I think the number probably is 4. I think we see Ryan and Strotman this year. I think we see Gant for sure. And I wouldn't be surprised to see Sis kept kind of interested in him or Scherff, the other reliever. So I think one of them might get a shot just as you're trying to plan. Because the main role or the main job that the Twins front office is going to have for the rest of the season is to start to plan their roster for next year. And a big part of that is to see who in their bullpen can they rely on or can they plan on to have next year. And a lot of these guys are going to be the names that they're going to need to shuffle through to see, what do you guys have? Can we count on you for next year as we're trying to make our free agency plans? Who can we count on? So I envision them cycling through a number of names throughout this season. And I would guess that a big number like Ryan or Stratman. And I don't know, some of these guys, I just think we're going to see them just as they try to make plans for next season.
I think that sounds about right. And also maybe some of those prospects already down in the system. We talked about guys like Balazovic and Winder or Winder. Would love to. I mean, that's what we have to look forward to in the second half now is how are the Twins going to set themselves up for next year? Are we going to see some of these prospects get a chance to get a look? So I am excited for that. It's a bummer that the Twins are not going to be in contention, but there's still certainly plenty of reasons to watch. So let's wrap it up. To summarize, the Twins 2021 deadline. Last week traded designated hitter Nelson Cruz to the Rays for right-handed pitchers Joe Ryan and Drew Stratman, both fairly highly thought of pitching prospects with big strikeout totals. Today trade Jose Barrios, the big blockbuster move, to the Toronto Blue Jays for top prospect Austin Martin, a middle infielder and center fielder, and right-handed pitcher Simeon Woods Richardson. Also dealt Jay Happ to the St. Louis Cardinals for right-handed pitcher John Gant, a 28-year-old semi-major league veteran who will probably just eat some innings in that bullpen, and a fringy prospect, left-hander by the name of Evan Sisk. And then at the end traded Hansel Robles, right-handed reliever, to the Red Sox for a right-handed pitcher by the name of Alex Scherff. So as we wind down and wrap it up here, gentlemen, Seth, what's your grade for the Twins at the 2021 trade deadline?
I'll give them a solid B. I think they did well in the Barrios deal. I think they did very well on the Nelson Cruz deal. I'm shocked they were able to get as much as they did for Happ, and Robles got, what you would expect to get for him. So the only reason that I'm not any higher than that is I would have actually liked to see them trade a few more, and specifically Pineda. As you mentioned, it would have been hard to get anything for Simmons or Colomé, but they could have got something for Pineda and still brought him back at the end of the year. So, a solid B, I feel good about it.
Yeah. Question here from Selene Jones. I think that's how it's pronounced. Are any of the pitchers received in the trade ace material? That's a high bar. I think it's probably tough to project that with any of them at this point, but you look at guys like Simeon Woods Richardson and Joe Ryan, and those guys certainly have high upside and I think the realistic ability to be a frontline type starter. Seth, do you agree with?
Yeah, I mean, Barrios to a lot of people wasn't considered an ace anyway. One of those true aces. Now, he was the Twins ace most of his career, but, was he really a true ace? He was ranked when he was a prospect anywhere from that 30 to 80 range, which is where you have seen Simeon's Woods Richardson, and Joe Ryan probably is close to that as well. So those are the two with that kind of upside. Again, Drew Stratman and he's the only other pitcher. Drew Stratman can probably be a more, a 3-4 if things work out. The other two can be 2-3s. And again, I kind of look at it like these guys that could develop into guys that you feel okay about starting in a 5 or 7 game playoff series, meaning they're a 1, 2, or 3. And I hope, that's where their potential is. So I guess we'll find out over the next 4 to 6 years.
Yeah. Matthew, what's your overall grade for the Twins here at this trade deadline? How do you think that they checked out?
I think I'd be with Seth on the B range. Maybe you'd bump it up to a B plus. I think now all the tension's on the Barrios, but just going back to the Nelson Cruz trade, that was just such a great move that the Twins made, and the timing I think was perfect. Just looking at all of the bats that went today, I think I really like the fact that they moved early on Nelson Cruz and that they let an aggressive team who wanted him get him and pay probably a little bit more than they should have for it. So I think that was just a really good move, and the Barrios return was great. I think I'm just, like I mentioned, I'm bummed that they didn't move some of the guys like Kenta Maeda. Taylor Rogers, I'm fine with them hanging on to, especially with the injury. But a Josh Donaldson, those types of guys, I would have liked to see them move. So that is what holds me back from getting him a better grade. And then again, just not trading Michael Pineda to me is inexcusable. There's no reason at all to have him on this team. So that's a big bummer. But overall, a solid deadline.
Nick, we'll have to ask you the same question of what your grade is, but just for fun, I want your guys' thoughts on if Taylor Rogers would not have hurt his finger. Ken Rosenthal said that, and understandably so, every team would have been interested in him. Of the relievers that were traded, obviously Kimbrel would probably get a little bit more of a return, but Taylor Rogers has a year plus left. You do kind of wonder. I do kind of wonder what if he would have been healthy, because the Twins might have been overwhelmed by an offer there that unfortunately, and maybe fortunately, because I don't think the Twins wanted to give him away, they're going to keep him, and that's okay.
Yeah, no, I think he definitely would have been traded if he wouldn't have gotten hurt. There was a lot of buzz around that, and I think the Twins are going to have a hard time turning away the offers they got. I mean, he's one of the best relievers on the market, certainly the best left-handed reliever. So that may be unfortunate to an extent, but it's hard to call it unfortunate because I love Taylor Rogers, and he's going to be the thing keeping this bullpen afloat for the rest of this year when he gets back, and next season if they don't trade him in the offseason. So I think I'm right with you guys. I'm probably at a B+. I think they did really well on all the deals they made. Little disappointed they weren't able to do a little more. But I do think that they are straddling the line enough. I can envision them fielding a decent rotation next year if they're able to rebound. I mean, look, the front office completely botched this last offseason. No one is ever going to deny that. They blew it. But we haven't really seen their pitching prospects come into the fold yet. They haven't had enough time to develop and reach the majors. And we've seen them make good moves in the past. You look at guys like Jake Odorizzi and Rich Hill. So I think they've shown the ability to target good pitchers. I just think they need to rebound and hopefully learn some lessons this year. So when you keep Buxton's team, hopefully, I mean, we'll see what happens in the offseason, but you keep Buxton, you keep Rogers, you keep Donaldson. You still got, I think, a pretty to try to bounce back even without Barrios, especially considering that a lot of these pitchers they got are these high minors type of pitchers who could really come in and factor in as soon as next year. So I'm excited about next year still. I don't think that they sold to the extent that it's a total burn down. And, there's a strategic logic to doing so. But as a fan, I don't know, the thought of strapping in for a long rebuild is just really painful. So I like the approach, and it sounds like Joel says a B or B+ is what he's saying. So I think most people are probably feeling in that range. And obviously we're going to have to see what happens with these prospects. This is the deadline that I think is going to make or break this front office, as well as how some of these pitchers in the high minors come along. That's going to dictate whether they are really successful in what they're trying to do.
Yep. I think you're right in saying Byron Buxton's the star, right? I think we all agree. He's the star. He's the one you want to keep around. But I also think that Jorge Polanco has put himself back on the map as the steady guy in the middle of the lineup and end defense. And I think he's gotten back to where he is I don't want to say leader, but the guy that you can rely on that roster. And I think that's a good thing. The other thing is, as I'm kind of sitting here and I've got MLB Network on in the background and they're showing Chris Bryant being told that he's been traded and he's crying and gets a hug from the coach. And Jose Barrios talked about not only getting the news himself, but then talking to his wife and then talking to his kids about how they'll have to move. It is a good reminder that trade deadline day is a lot of fun for fans, but it's probably just awful for the players. And, I'm sure some are relieved. And I also wonder if Taylor Rogers would have been traded to San Francisco. Would the Twins have asked for
his bro?
Would the Twins have insisted on getting his brother back?
I mean, for the Twins to make a Twins-related trade would only be right, although I don't think I want to ever trade for any more relievers from the Giants. All right. We've been going for a while. We've discussed a lot of stuff here. We really appreciate all you guys hanging with us, contributing all your comments. I personally am excited to sort of go back to my Twitter feed and catch up on all the tweets about the action today and go read the comments on Twins Daily. Certainly encourage you guys to all today. And we got articles on all these moves at Twins Daily. Ton of discussion on each. That sounds like you have one more thing to add.
No, I apologize, but Eric's got a good comment here that I did want to just touch on, and I'll pop that up here.
Edgar Garcia, yes.
Edgar Garcia, yeah. So the Twins claimed him, I believe, from the Reds today, and he's a guy that's pitched in the big leagues a little bit the last 3 years to not great numbers for 3 different teams, but his minor league numbers look okay. probably a reliever, but he's still only 24. So again, I think he's the kind of guy that they should be claiming at the back end of their 40-man roster. And then you just evaluate up close and personal over the next 2 months, see what he's got and if he should be part of the future. So not a major thing today, but I do think it was worth just kind of mentioning there. So I'll let Nick get back to letting us be done.
Yes. The Twins, Garcia just adds to this pool. The Twins are going to have a lot of things to sort through here in the rest of the season and in the offseason. I saw Mark had a comment that lots of 40-man challenges ahead for the offseason. That is another wrinkle of everything that's happening, bringing all this minor league talent into the system that is mostly fairly close to the majors. These are not, if anyone thought the Twins were going back into a full rebuild, I think this kind of rebukes that idea because these guys are not single A raw prospects for the most part. These guys are pretty close. I'm excited. I'm excited that we'll be able to see some of them pretty soon. And as I mentioned, excited to chat about all this stuff with the community at Twins Daily. So everyone, please, if you missed any of this episode, if you came in late, you wanted to hear about the Jose Barrios discussion we had at the outset, you'll be able to find our podcast. Just Google search Twins Daily Podcast. It's on all of your favorite podcast platforms. You can go to our YouTube page and find this full video. It'll be on the website. And of course, we'll have tons of analysis from all of our writers on all of these moves and what this means going forward and what the rest of this Twins season is going to look like. It's going to look very different without a couple of the most cherished, beloved, players like Nelson Cruz and Jose Barrios no longer on the team. It's going to take a while, especially I think for the latter to sink in because Barrios is one of the most tenured, talented players on this team and one of the better pitchers in recent Twins history. So thank you so much, everyone, for hanging with us. Make sure to check out twinsdaily.com, and we'll hopefully be doing some more streams here in the latter part of the season as we follow off the string, watch some of these young players come up, and look ahead to an offseason that's going to be very intriguing with a lot of big decisions ahead. So to recap, the Twins traded Nelson Cruz, Jose Barrios, J. Happ, Hansel Robles, did not trade Byron Buxton, Taylor Rogers, Josh Donaldson, Tyler Duffy, Andrelton Simmons, Michael Pineda, perhaps most surprisingly. All those guys still on the Twins for the time being. So thank you, everyone, for hanging with us, and we'll catch you next time. And go Twins.